Hey guys, it's Shadow here. So, this is a deck that I've been using for a while, and I've grown to really like it. It's a Nino deck, and it's one of the more competitive decks, and it's one of the more pricier decks. But, yeah, it's really fun, and if you have the cards, I mean, why not try it out? I didn't make this deck completely on my own. I found this idea on YouTube, but I tried to change it a little bit to fit my liking, but for the most part, it's mainly this guy's cards. So I'm gonna put a link in the description below for this guy's video and his Twitter if I can find it again. But yeah, so let's just jump into it. So starting off, we have 4 copies of level 1 Nino, because this is a Nino deck after all. And here is 4 copies of the level 4 as well. So the level 4 one is really expensive, but it's a really good card, and I think it's one of the most expensive cards in the game right now. Her effect allows you to stack a card and then get a copy of the main character to your hand, in which case is herself. And then if you ever support with a Nino, then you can flip a one and draw a card. So it's really good for hand advantage, and it's really good for setting up your plays. And there are other cards in this deck that will help you get advantage from, using her effect. So she sets up for a lot of plays, and depending on what you have in your hand to play, it's a really good card. So yeah, that's going to be our main character, and we're using 8 copies of her. And next we have 4 copies of level 5 Eliwood. So it seems like every purple deck, or every deck that is using purple, is using this card. He has a really good support stat, so his ability allows him to change his support to whatever the level of your card is. So if he supports Nino, it's going to be a 40 support. And most of the time, your main character will be 40 support. And in this deck, I'll show you later, but almost all the cards are higher than level 2. So yeah, his support's almost always going to be 30 plus. And also, especially in this deck, Nino allows you to stack a card. So say you're going to stack a level 4 Marth. Eliwood can then use the effect to play the level 4 Marth from the support zone. And yeah, so it sets up for amazing plays, and this is one of your MVPs of this deck, so you try to get him and keep him on the field for as long as you can. And next, we have 4 copies of Milena. So this card got kind of power creeped by Nino in this latest set, but Milena's still a really good card, and it's really good in this deck. So with Nino, if you stack herself, right, you can then support with another card, and then mill the Nino. And then Nino's effect will let you draw a card, and then Milena's effect will let you draw another card. So it actually causes a lot of pressure on your opponent to kill it, which makes them not want to attack your main character, and I mean, you have blocks in your hand guaranteed from Nino's effect. So just having Milena on the field just really pressures your opponent to, attack your back row. And if they don't, then you're getting card advantage every single turn. And then next, I'm running 4 copies of the level 3 Florina and 4 copies of the level 1. So I think this deck kind of needs some support stat. There's going to be a lot of mages and a lot of 20 supporters in this deck, so she's going to help you get that push for damage if you want. Florina's a really good card because most of the time you're going to have a lot of cards in the field, since most of your cards are pretty high level, and it's going to be kind of hard to kill. So having Florina support there just helps you really get through with those attacks, especially Nino's attacks, and having level 1 flyers allows you to move things. So if you have one in your hand, you can just stack it with Nino and then move a card if you need to move a card. So that's all the purple cards right now, but now we're going to go into the red cards. So we're going to start off with 4 copies of Marth. So we have level 4 Marth. This card is a really good main character, but it's also really good in this deck. If you use Nino, you can stack her level 1 to the top of your deck, and then get, say, another level 1 to your hand. And then if you have Marth in the field, you can attack, and then trigger Nino's effect to draw a card, and then you can also get that level 1 Nino back to your hand. So it's like a free main character guaranteed in this deck. Yeah, Marth is just really good that way, and although you don't have too many level 1s, if you can get off Nino's effect to stack a level 1, it's going to work out for you really well. And then next we have 4 copies of level 4 Kaida. So her effect allows you to search cards, and there's some red cards that you don't want early on that you're probably going to put in your bond area, but late game you're going to want it, like Marth and Tiki that I'm going to show you next. So not only because she's level 30, but because she does allow you to kind of search out cards and cards that you want to stack. It's just a pretty good card to put in this deck, and I think most red decks should run it anyway, so yeah, there's level 4 Kaida. And next we have 2 copies of Tiki. So I'm only running 2 because this card is pretty dead early game. But with Eliwood's effect to play her pretty early, it's a pretty good card, and it allows you to get more bonds in your area. You're gonna be flipping a lot of bonds to use Eliwood's effect and Nina's effect, and just other effects in general in this deck. So having Tiki is not gonna be a bad thing, and just having her there is gonna cause your opponent to want to attack her. And if they don't, then you're getting more bonds. So it's just another one of those cards that are just really good in general, and you just want to get her late game. So that's why I'm only running 2 copies. And then finishing off the red cards of this deck, we have 4 copies of level 1 Bello. So Bello has the Mage's Emblem, which allows you to draw and discard, which can trigger Milena's effect. But also, you do have a lot of mages in this deck, so there's a high chance of him being like 60 attack, which is pretty good for a level 1. Yeah, it's just one of those cards that you can just have in your hand, just attack things and kill them if you want to, because you don't want to waste your attacks from your stronger cards just to like kill an archer or something. So that's what Bello is going to be here for, and yeah, his support is pretty useful in this deck. So this deck is going to be a triple colored deck, so we're moving on to the yellow cards now. So this card is kind of being pretty used in like anything that you can use her in as well. Deirdre is a really good card. She stops dragons, and also she lets you refresh your bonds. So like I said, you do kind of use a lot of bonds up in this deck, and I mean, if your opponent doesn't kill her, then you're just going to refresh your bonds continuously. So again, more pressure for your opponent to kill her, and she's really easy to get out. So yeah, I mean, why would you not use her in a deck that can use yellow cards, right? Alright, and then our last card in our deck, we're going to have 4 copies of Emma. Emma's one of those cards that I think is really good, and it should go into like almost every yellow deck. I mean, some people might disagree, but it's just like having a card in your bond area that you can use whenever you want just to move a card is pretty useful. In this deck, you're going to have some flyers that are going to move your, I don't know, like Eliwood to the back. So sometimes you just want to move that card back to the front when you have the chance. So this card allows you to do it whenever you want, and if you have a Deirdre, you can just unflip it. So it's really not that big of a deal. And we're using not too many yellow cards because all the yellow cards in this deck are going to be late game cards. So as long as you bond one of those early game, it doesn't really matter which one you bond, but you just got to keep one face up on the field and you can play any yellow cards you want. So that's why you don't need too many of them. So here's the deck again, all laid out. Like I'm using 4 copies of every card in here except for the two Tikis that I'm using. But unless you have the deck, I don't really recommend you going out and purchasing all of them, unless you do have like most of the cards. But this deck is like the epitome of the like super most expensive deck you can build. So yeah, I mean, if you can make it, it's fun to do it. And it's like, why not, right? You already have all the really expensive cards, so just do it. Yeah, so thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.